Welcome to the Leading with Empathy podcast. My name is Daniel Murray, and today I'm speaking to the always generous Pamela Cominos. Now, Pamela's got such an interesting background. She's gone through her own challenges in terms of divorce and all those sorts of things that maybe many of us have, but that really led her down a path to starting her own practice and in law and helping families through that family law process, which can be so challenging. We talk about how that's really shaped her, and then actually she found that it wasn't really for her anymore. She's such a passionate person, so she started her own organization to help female entrepreneurs in particular to walk the path and really develop. Hero Women, we'll hear more about Hero Women in this session as well. And Pamela shares so much. She's a very generous soul, and you'll really enjoy this episode with the effervescent Pamela Cominos. Hello, Pamela. How you going? It's so good to see you and your big smile. How are things today?
Things are very good. Thank you very much, Jan, for having me today. It's
Uh,
Sydney, and Sydney's always makes me smile.
oh, good. Very, very good. Yes. Well, look, I'm really interested to have a chat about with you. Sorry about many of your different hats you wear and the things that you do and the journey that's sort of taking you to where you are now. So maybe give us a little bit of a background from studying law potentially. Where did you go? What did you do? And how did you end up where you are now?
Yeah, interesting story. A lot of it is pain driven, actually. Not a lot of consideration, more pain and reaction to difficult situations that I found myself in. I didn't become a lawyer until much later in my life. So around 2008 was when I was admitted. And that was following the end of a significant relationship, an 18-year marriage, in fact. So very little work, career experience other than being raising three lovely children who are adult children now. Lots of experience raising children. There's a lot of challenges, as you know, and then you kind of bring all those skills, if you like, into the workplace. And as my journey has progressed, and as I lead two businesses, I often see the similarities about what it means to be a leader. It's sometimes very similar to what it means to be a parent.
Yeah,
There
I
is,
couldn't
there is
agree more.
a there is a real similarity there, and I was sharing that actually with one of my colleagues yesterday. And in a way, you're leading, and you lead with empathy, and I absolutely agree with empathy as well. But I do think you're educating. A leadership role is an educational role.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really about helping other people become better versions of themselves, to learn
Totally.
and to grow, and that's exactly I think what parenting should be. Whether it is or not, it's never always the case. But what? Why was there an impact, or was there a reason this the law career started after particularly the family law career? Is there a tie in between your experience and then wanting to sort of start? Common family lawyers?
Great question, actually. There was a real drive. There's a real fire in my belly. In fact, when I set up businesses, I have this fire in my belly kind of feeling. And what it was for me when I went through my experience of divorce, I honestly couldn't find someone who understood me, and the lack of empathy that I had experienced caused me to say, I believe strongly that I can make a difference in the world. Whether that's a large or small difference, it wasn't where I was going. It was more the fact that people are in pain when they're going through a separation and divorce, and they're often quite numb. And so when a lawyer is speaking to you, you just have to understand that a lot of the impact and the effect of when you're communicating to a client is lost on them. And I was in that seat. I was in that seat where I was numb, anxious, unsettled, confused. And unfortunately, the family lawyers, I think they're getting so much better these days, but the family lawyers in 2007, 2008, maybe we're not so equipped to deal with that side of the emotional pain of a client. Having been through it, obviously that I had another perspective, and I was able to deliver. I felt a different, more attuned purpose to the way that I related to people who were going through separations. So that was kind of the fire in my belly, was I wanted to make a change.
Mm. And it's a it is an important consideration because in many ways, the legal profession is very much designed on right and wrong, yes, no, inside law, outside law, and there's procedures and rules, and it's quite in some ways it should be a fairly rigid sort of endeavor in some senses, but of course you're also dealing with people, and sometimes in one of the most vulnerable, emotional and challenging times of their lives. So what do you see there that people do wrong? Well, why is it so hard to get those two worlds to combine?
Just so when you're saying getting the two worlds to combine, you mean the law and the empathetic world, or the law
Yeah, I mean,
and the
I
transparent?
guess where do you see the issue? Is it that maybe I'm making an assumption that's wrong? Is it that people who are very driven through the legal process
Mm.
forget to care about the people, or they're too busy to care about the
No,
people,
it's not
or
that. It's not that they're not trained.
right?
Okay, so lawyers are not trained counselors. I mean, I'm very blessed in the sense that I've have a real fascination with not I don't counsel people, but with mentorship. I'm a very big advocate of mentorship. So when we practice divorce law in our business, we bring a component of coaching and mentorship into it. It's not necessarily a requirement of a law degree to go off and do. For example, I'm an accredited life coach. It's not a requirement to do any of that work. So I think that's the difficulty, and lawyers are there to solve a legal problem. We're not there to deal with all the other complexities. However, humans are incredibly complex people. So when they're coming to you, they want more. Often the legal problem is the last problem that they want you to solve. It's
Yeah.
often, what they're really looking for is, can you kind of reassure me that I'm going to be okay in the future?
Mhm.
Like, what do I do here? I need some bills paid. I'm stuck financially. What can we do right now? It's not big problems. I mean, they are big problems for people, obviously, but there's more than just legal problems trying to be solved. There's more
Yeah.
than that. People worry, they say, okay, how am I going to do this parenting arrangement? Does that mean that I'm going to lose relationship with my children?
Yes.
Does it mean I'm not going to see my kids? Like, is it fair that I'm paying and not seeing my children? All of these issues that arise, it's huge.
Mm. And I think that's a really good point because there's the I guess the advice you need to give from a legal perspective on what will likely happen or how the law plays out. But of course, that's written by lawyers for lawyers. It's not written by people who are experiencing
Mm,
it, and
mm.
sometimes we communicate in ways. Did you find that the way you communicate with people was something you really shifted when you moved into that area?
Yeah, very much so. I like to communicate very practically, so very practical communicator. And I'm a person that also likes to give, what's the word for it? Kind of illustrations. So I think humans learn so much better when we have similes, or we can visualize things. So for me, the technicality of law, it doesn't play a role when I have the conversation with the client. It's about, does this client understand the effect and the consequences in their day-to-day life of what this actually means?
Mm.
That's where I go to. You'll hear me say it often that I work back to front. So often I will ask questions like, okay, so if this happens, let me just play out in your own mind. What do you think the consequences might be for you and your life?
Mm.
So we're
Mm.
kind of teasing it out a bit differently. I do take a very pragmatic and a very practical approach, because ultimately people have to live their lives,
Yeah.
right? Irrespective. And family law is a very unique jurisdiction because it isn't a black and white jurisdiction. It is a highly discretionary jurisdiction.
Mm.
And what you might consider to be fair is not necessarily what is in the just and equitable view of a court or family law. So it's a very it's a very difficult, not difficult, but it's a discretionary jurisdiction.
Mm. Well, and that's one of the things I come across quite a lot, which is that idea of fairness.
Yes.
Fairness is something that
Wow.
sits deep within us. I always think, it's basically the cause of so many challenges. Like, oh, that's unfair, or I don't believe that was fair, and I feel smited in some way. And often in family law, you're talking about pretty challenging and really impactful relationships.
Huge.
how have you, I guess, what's your experience with that been like? Where do you see this sense of, look, it's just, but it might not feel fair, and how do you sort of navigate those murky waters?
It's really difficult. It's really, really difficult because when someone has an entrenched position about this is fair in their eyes, well, I can't dispute that necessarily because I'm not, I will never challenge someone's feelings. I mean, if you feel that you've been disgruntled or it's unfair, I can't dispute that experience for you. The only thing I can do is shed some light around the context, the entire context of it. And maybe sometimes if we can say, all right, you're feeling disgruntled right now. If possible, this is where empathy does come into it. And it's not always easy when people are in the grips and the throes of their anger. Okay. It's very difficult to say, let's have a look at what it's like for the other party. Maybe not your ex-partner, but imagine another party in that situation. How do you think they might see that?
Yeah.
There is a psychology around this, as you know. But it's case by case, person by person. Not everybody's able to sit in that conversation with me. Like, not everybody can handle that. Most people can. Eventually, the penny does drop. Eventually, they do get better. But I highly recommend if anyone is going through a separation that's quite challenging, do get counseling support, coaching support, mentorship support, whatever you need. And it's also a transition period.
Mm.
It's not forever. And I 100% promise you, you'll move through this.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's that's important, that idea of
Mm.
getting someone to help you and coach you, because I think when people do fascinate on those senses of fairness, and they don't get the different perspectives,
Mm.
maybe they only talk to people who agree with them and they reinforce that sort of unfair perspective. They do sit in it longer, I think. Would you agree? You've
Oh,
seen that.
100%. No, 100%. I mean, none of us like to have the devil's advocate tell us, well, that may not necessarily be right. When you've got this really brilliant idea and then someone comes along and challenges it and you think, I don't really like you. How dare you challenge my idea? How dare you do that to me? But
Yeah.
that's the wisdom, right? If you can have that enlightenment and the wisdom, but it comes at different times for people. And I mean, I know what it was like in 2007, 2008, after an 18-year marriage with 3 young children, and coming out of that, and the person that I am today is a very different woman that I was in 2007, 2008. And so I speak from a lived experience as well for
Mm.
people. And I think there is value in having, and it's not a criteria to be a divorce lawyer to be divorced. It's certainly not. It's good if you're going to work in the space of humans, and human impact and relationships. I truly believe that it'll be very helpful if you've got a healthy relationship
Mhm.
or you have gone through a similar journey and gone through that experience.
Mhm.
I
Mhm.
think it doesn't mean that you're not going to be a good lawyer if you haven't. I'm not saying that. It just adds a different dimension.
Yeah, and this is, I guess, at the heart of empathy, isn't it? It's trying to understand what might be going on for this person, not necessarily projecting that my experience is their experience, but saying, well, look, I know there's lots of different things that could happen, and I, you know, obviously, if we've had that experience, we'll have an appreciation for some of those nuances. And I think that's where this becomes, relevant for all types of leaders. If I'm helping someone to, if I'm announcing a restructure or a downsizing or cost cutting or redundancies and all these things, which are also emotional moments where fairness and unfairness can become a heightened sort of position, then if I can understand what those people are feeling and then communicate it with them, not in this sort of black and white, well, it's happened, just suck it up and move on, having that compassion and
Mm.
empathy to say, hey, look, I know this is going to be hard. Let's talk about it and let's understand why it needs to happen. And I think there's some real sort of crossover there.
I think I just want to touch on that point. The way it's really the delivery of the message. Humans can handle the hard truth. I genuinely believe that humans can handle it. What they don't like and what they can't handle is the way it's delivered. So if information is delivered in a very insensitive way or a cruel way or an inconsiderate way, they will react, and rightly so, Because at the end of the day, it's a humane interaction, is it not? When you're delivering something that's so life-changing, like someone losing their job, for example, that's huge. But it's all in the way that we're delivering it. And eventually people won't make you the enemy. They'll understand because you've shown that empathy. And I truly practice that. I think that is a very, very wise thing to do in our communication.
Yeah, and it's supporting people, and I think this is something that you're really passionate about, supporting people through those journeys. So, tell us about Hero Women.
Oh, wow, how exciting. We're moving
I
on to an
know.
aspirational business. Yeah, it's really very good. It took a long
Firstly,
time
maybe
yeah,
before you dive in, how
yeah,
did you get from
yeah,
lawyer, running a very successful law practice,
yeah,
um, clearly lots of things to do, very busy, but
yeah.
then find the time to start this other
Yeah.
business? Why did you start it? What does it do? And
I
what's the
tell you,
link?
everything I do, Daniel, is pain driven. I tell you, everything I do is pain. Pain is a fantastic motivator. Around 2018, 2019, I started to recognize that I had begun to outgrow being in the lawyer role. I had started to outgrow it. I found it, instead of giving me joy, it was what's the word for it? It was zapping my energy. And I have shared my story. I ended up in a bit of a burnout mode to the point where I had my name on the door, but I was one of the employees who didn't want to go to work. I was like, I don't want to go to work. And I'm owning this business. And that's the truth. And the moment you tell the truth to yourself and others, that's the moment that change occurs. All right. When you tell the truth, change will occur. So that was my truth. Now, that's a very scary truth to tell because you have staff, you have clients, okay, you have a livelihood. So it's a very truth to tell. However, the woman that I am, I can't not but be authentic to myself. I've come too far in my life not to be authentic. But in telling the truth, it's a funny thing that happens in the universe. Things align for you. And suddenly people appear for you that you didn't see before. And suddenly they begin to say to you, wow, I can see that you're really unhappy in this role. How can we help you? And so what we did was there was this whole exchange and transference, I suppose, of roles and empowerment and delegation and elevation of people that were already in the team, which then I gave them the truth. I said, I'm doing something else. I don't know what that is yet, but there'll be something else. It doesn't mean that I don't care about you. I care enormously about the staff and the team, the culture. I set the culture all the time. Like that's what I do. But it's time for me to do something else that I believe it's a legacy business. So I believe I want to work with a different category of people, like different, no longer the separated people, but now moving into a different world. So to get from Cominos Family Lawyers to Hero Women, okay, I did take a 6-month sabbatical. So I did take time out. Did I go and write some book? No, I didn't do that. Did I travel Europe? No, I did not do that. Did I do a lot of walking? Yes, I did. I did a lot of walking and I did a lot of sleeping. I needed to recover. And so what did I do? After I was doing my sabbatical, I started to think about what are my so-called superpowers? You know, you often hear, what are human superpowers? And I started to look at that. I've got superpowers. Yes, I love mentorship, but it's not just enough for me to have that one superpower. It was more, how do I monetize my superpowers in a way that's rewarding for me and financially beneficial? Because if you know anything about business, it can be one of the fastest ways into poverty.
Yes. Oh, look, starting a new business is scary, but
So it's
I
like, oh my gosh, what am I doing here? So I really, really had to think very carefully. And, I've got a very beautiful life partner, my significant life partner, and he is my devil's advocate. He's the person that says, that's not going to work. I'm like, oh no. But I had to work with him, come up with a really strong business plan and a case for this business case, so they had some legs. And so I did call it Hero Women, and it's called Hero because of a couple of things. Number one, I resonated with my Greek culture. So I'm born in Australia, I'm an Australian-born girl, but I'm also from Greek culture. And I was looking to find something that embodied all of my attributes. And so Hera is the original Greek goddess who was married to Zeus. And so she gave Zeus a very hard time, which was so she would have, because he was a very naughty boy. And she embodies everything I believe in, the empowerment, the protectiveness. She's all about uplifting and elevating women. And I thought, well, that name is perfect for me. Hero Women, perfect. And it's a play on hero. It's
Yes.
a hero in your story. It's a play on here are women. Didn't realize this, by the way, until now. Oh, not now, but recently. So Hero Women is coming to the world again through pain, my pain. As a woman who owns a small business, one of the gaps I personally saw was the accessibility of confidants and mentors. And business, being a leader, is really an exercise in self-development, in personal development. Because what you have in your business is a reflection often of who you are internally, who you're being. And for me, I couldn't find anywhere that combined the personal development, the business development, and the leadership development in a way that was safe and confidential and a way that was transformational and impactful. I'd been to a lot of networking, a lot of community groups, etc. They did somewhat some of those things, but not consistently and not well enough for me. And so I thought, well, here's a gap right now. How do I meet this gap? How do I solve this problem for myself? I mean, ultimately, I'm looking for my tribe, and I couldn't find my tribe, so I thought, you know what, I'll lead a tribe.
Beautiful.
Kind of what I'm doing right now, leading a tribe. But the tribe is very, very catering to the unseen and the forgotten and the very hardworking women in this country. We're talking about the women who are turning over businesses that are in the $500,000 turnover and beyond, often and maybe capped at about 5 to 10 million. They're often hardworking women, unseen, but I've got so much to give. And so I thought, why not bring in Hera, give them a bit of a luxury feel, make them feel really, really valued, and keep elevating them so they can keep building and being supported to be the women that they want to be in the world.
Why do you think that is a gap? Why do you think there isn't that support or that sort of network? Because there is, as you and I both know, there's a lot of networking groups. There's a lot of groups set up to help businesses. There's a lot of sharks amongst some of those areas, and what you described, this idea of supportive and nurturing. It seems like it would be such a. Why do you think that gap existed for you to fill?
I honestly believe it comes back down to the founders of these businesses often and what the motivation and the intention was when they first started. What was their vision? So our vision is really all about empowering women in business to live with freedom across all areas of their lives. So one of the things that I saw was being a business owner, you don't have a lot of freedom, even though that's what you kind of set out to do. Every business owner that I know on this planet wants freedom, financial freedom, freedom to determine their time, freedom to go on holidays. I hadn't been on a holiday for a decade. Seriously, running this business, there's no freedom, and freedom to grow, freedom to work on your business, not necessarily in your business, etc. So it really depends very, very much on the purpose of why it was founded. And you know, I do believe that. Why else is there not a support? I also believe that it's very easy to go into networking groups, generally speaking, without like what's the word? When people come into Hero Women, first of all, it's by invitation. So we're looking at the quality of the community. Secondly, what we do, we don't just say, here you are, welcome here. I have created an entire induction process for them, including collateral, including the philosophy of Hero Women, including healthy rules around Hero Women. And one of our strongest healthy rules is what said here stays here. So it's a confidential forum. And I think the structures perhaps are missing for a lot of other community groups. I don't know, but I feel I have a sense that that's missing. And if you're not sharing the vision of your business as a founder to your members or your clients or your staff, it's very, very easy to get lost. Very easy. So at Hero Women, all of our women, interestingly enough, are on the same mission, and that is to build healthy and highly profitable businesses and lives. No matter what business they're in, there's a commonality there. And so there's a group commonality. And I think that's a very cohesive culture.
Mm, mm. And I think that's such an important factor. You know, we so quickly form connections in this
Yes,
modern world. We've got
yes,
LinkedIn connections and Facebook
yes,
connections and
yes.
et cetera, but we don't necessarily form strong relationships that
Mm,
often. And I fear that we might be losing a bit of that ability to form those relationships. And I think those values you're talking about, this vision, this shared set of values,
mm.
is a powerful thing for us to form those relationships on. Give me a sense. What are some of the challenges that you find these women face regularly, so that maybe someone listening to this goes, oh, "Hey, I've got those challenges. Maybe here are women could help me."
Mm. I get getting stuck doing the same thing over and over again, but being unhappy with it and not being sure how to get out of it. So you go to your job, you do your thing day in and day out, but really you know that to grow a business, there's a lot of other things that you need to be doing.
Mm,
You haven't found the way yet to let go of a lot of the administrative tasks or a lot of the technical tasks that you're doing. So there's this constant tension there. There's a constant tension between you're doing the work, right? But you know that to grow this business or to be the person that you want to be in business, it's a different role that you have.
mm,
There's fear in that. Okay. There's a fear because humans like they don't like change, and
mm,
humans like what's comes easy. Now, to let go and trust other people to do your work is a very scary thing for freaks like myself, complete control freak leader, because I would say, oh my God, you can't do this as good as me. And I think that we have to start, and that's what Hera does. I'm a contrarian, so I challenge these outdated views because we know that to grow a business, you cannot be on the tools, as they say.
yeah.
If
So
you choose to grow a business, that is.
yeah, absolutely. And that's it's something we hear all the time, work on the business, not in the business. And the words are said a lot,
Yeah.
but not as many people actually do it. What was what helped you shift from doing all the work, being the control freak? What did you change that helped you shift from that to
Yeah.
not
Great
only handing it
question.
over to your team, but also then wanting to build that for other people?
Mm. You can't, people say to you things like, oh, just let go. Like, stop being such a control freak, right? Just let go. What's the problem? Well, there is a problem because you don't just want to let go and have chaos, right? You want to have let go and have consistency in your business. So the way that and I came late to this understanding as a professional woman, as a lawyer. I'm a very good lawyer, but business owner, no. That's a very being an entrepreneur and being a lawyer or being a plumber or whatever you're doing is very different to owning a business. So what did I start to think about? I started to read a lot. I'm a huge reader. I'll read anything. I could probably read a book a week, who knows? But I started to read a lot about how do you run a business? I mean, how do you really run a business? And I've never been trained on how to run a business. And I've heard terms like processes and systems and, same page meetings and all. And I was like, what on earth does all that mean? I'm a lawyer. I don't understand processes and systems. Mind you, the entire legal practice and profession is based on, protocol and procedures and systems. But hey, my legal practice didn't need that. But in fact, it did. So I had to get over my own ignorance, if you like, and my own resistance. It took a lot of time. It took 3 years. This is not an overnight success story. This is
Yeah.
certainly not, okay? It took 3 years. So I had to sit down and say, okay, well, what are how do I want things to be done here?
Mm.
Okay. If I hand it over to someone, that's good. That's good. But it's not a set and forget. There's a whole conversation that goes on about empowering people when you delegate to them because you don't want to set them up for failure.
Mm.
I'm setting up people for success.
Yeah.
And so I had to learn different ways of communicating with people and not to bother them and not to be burdensome on them, but to have great open lines of communication that were consistent. So I brought in consistency into the business. Prior to that, it was chaos. If you want to upscale, no, honestly, if you're genuinely interested and serious about letting go, there are things that there is a platform. It's like building a home. You don't go straight to the roof. you start foundational work, don't you? You start with foundations and then you do whatever. I'm not a builder, so you tell me. But you do the walls and then you get to the roof eventually. But that takes time.
Yes. Yeah, I'm not a builder either, but I'm sure that's exactly what
You get my analogy. I told you
absolutely.
I'm a very visual person.
Yeah, and again, the having someone who has built their house, who has been through the journey, who knows where the pitfalls come, where the challenges come, and then having a community of people who are also doing that together, it
Exciting.
makes a huge amount of sense. Absolutely. And look, I think it's
Exciting.
it's great that you've created this
Thank
space,
you.
and I think it's a powerful space that I'd
It
encourage lots
is.
of people to check out
Oh, I did
because
too. And yeah, it's
you're
great.
right. The hardest thing for us is we build a business, and
Mhm.
it's our baby.
Baby. It's a parent thing
It
again.
is, and we don't
Let
want
go of
someone
the
else.
baby.
We can't hand it over to someone else, but of course, sometimes we need to get that help
You'd be
in.
very surprised how competent other people are, Dan.
I think they're
You're
probably
not
far
the
more.
smartest person on the planet. I had to tell you that.
I
There are very competent people out there who are very willing to help and support you.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's you're right. There's there's plenty of different networking groups, there's plenty of different organizations that come together. But I think the thing that I admire so much about you is you bring both the structural,
Yes.
pragmatic tools and processes, but also that really important piece, which is how do I communicate with others? How do I tell myself the right sort of story that helps me navigate through this journey and feel that sense of comfort. And I think, as you were talking about, this will change. We're going to become different.
Mhm.
It's going to be okay.
You
That's a really
can't
important.
look, I read, as I said, I read a lot of books, and one book that really resonates, a lot of books resonate, but one book that stands out today, and I'll share it with you. It's Dan Sullivan's work, and I'm sure you may have heard of it. It's 10X. It's his book all about 10Xing. And what he talks about is, yes, 10Xing is a lot easier than doubling, like being a 2Xer compared to a 10Xer is easier. But here's the thing, right? You can't be the same person. If you want to be a 10X player or a champion player, you got to play a champion game. You can't be someone who's a trainee at 2X playing a champion's game. So what has to give? You have to shed layers, or you have to build capabilities, or you have to go into fear zones, right, and become fearless. But to do it alone is pretty much impossible. That's why Olympians out there in the world have coaches.
Mhm.
Hello, that makes sense, doesn't it? Yeah,
Absolutely.
absolutely. So extraordinary leaders in the world have mentors, or they have mentorship communities that hold them
Mm.
accountable and push them forward. I told you, humans are naturally lazy. We are. I'm the laziest person on the planet. Can someone just do this for me, please?
I don't know if I'd say you're the laziest person on the planet, but I do
Yeah,
take your point. And
yeah.
yeah, look, again, it comes down to knowing yourself and understanding, what's going on inside of me. That self-reflection is something that every time I
Um,
talk to you, I notice that sense of self-reflection and self-awareness. Where did that come from? What did that happen for you?
Oh,
Was there
what a
any
great
catalyst?
question. I mean, honestly, I think it came when I was a very young teenager. I think it started for me, and people do say callings come to you early in life. I always enjoyed mentorship. I always truly wanted to see people be better and do better. And so for me, I've been in the mentorship game I suppose, since I was 12, 13. Our family of origin was a very difficult family of origin, to be honest. I'm happy to share about this because it's many years ago now and I've healed. But the family of origin was a high conflict family. And so we had a lot of dysfunctional behavior in the family. And I was probably a functional person, a child caught in a dysfunctional family. And I became an adult in some ways, an early adult. And
Mm,
my mentorship, I don't know where it came from. It's innate. It kicked in for me. And I took on that role of assisting dysfunctional parents, sadly, get their
mm,
act together. Was I successful? No,
mm.
because they were purely dysfunctional adults. Did it impact my life? Yeah, extraordinarily. Did it affect my confidence? Yes. Did it mean that I ended up in an unhealthy marriage? Yes, it certainly did. It directed my life in ways that I didn't know until much later when I started to do more work on myself. But I've always believed I'm a lifelong learner. I'm a lifelong learner, and I truly believe that everything I have today is a reflection of who I'm being and what I'm thinking. And I've never been an entitled human. Like I
Mhm.
never ever expect anyone to give me anything. I just don't live like that. I really don't. And it's just years and years of, I suppose, rewiring old, antiquated neural pathways.
Yeah. Yeah, and so that's some of the hardest roadblocks we have to deal with, isn't it? Those internal ones that we build for ourselves. And again, I guess it's that experience you've got. It's a bit like we talked about with the law. When you've had that experience yourself, it
Yeah.
puts you in a better position to be able to empathize and understand the journey that other people are going on. And as I said, I think there are plenty of people out there who write to me on LinkedIn every day saying they can help me with my business and they can do all these wonderful things. But the thing that I find most challenging is how can I build that trust? And how do I understand, or how do I have confidence that this person really genuinely wants to help me? Is there a way in which you do that when you bring a group of women together for Hero Women? Is there a way in which you help foster that sense of trust and connection?
100% we do. Again, there's a whole education piece and training. So I'm an educator. I don't know if you know, but one of my other degrees is an education degree, and I did teach high school for a while. So I do have a philosophy of education, educating people first before we elevate them. Um, Building trust is really, look, it's your word. Ultimately, it's around integrity. Okay. And this is why you just said to me, I struggle with people who LinkedIn me and they say I can help you with your business, because there is a lot of that looking good that goes on. But if you scratch beneath the surface and you do some of your own forensic inquiry, which of course everybody should, you may discover that it's all smokes and mirrors. And I think we're coming to a point being a very sophisticated, hopefully a sophisticated market, where we're starting to look at who's the real deal here. And so I will always say, have you done what I want to do? And I think with me, I have done what women want to do. Most of them do want to have freedom in their business, and I certainly have done it. And that's my next journey, is writing the book around that, Dan. And give me some time, it's coming. It's the next journey. It's been a big year, but it is the next journey for me to share that wisdom. All I do is share it. There's no 5 easy steps. There's no, like, last month I made $20 billion. There's none of that stuff.
Mm,
And when you keep hearing that stuff, if it's too good, if it sounds too good to be true, it's too good to be true.
probably is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But to your point, I really want to raise an issue about this. You sort of alluded to trust, and I don't know if you did allude to this, but I will raise it. This whole notion about the imposter syndrome that I
Mhm.
often hear in our community. And I remember listening to someone recently, and I thought it was really clever. They said, "Look, this particular person was saying, perhaps you feel like an imposter because maybe you are, because maybe you haven't actually done the work that you need to do to stand up and say what." See, I never, to be honest, I don't feel like an imposter. Like and if ever I have a little bit of a doubt, I go and skill up. Like, oh, I'll go and learn something. I'll do the hard work and then I'll deliver it to you. But
Mm.
I'll never pretend that I'm, really good at public speaking, for example, and I've never been to Toastmasters. That's not who I am. So I don't live in that world of imposter. And I think that if you're feeling that way, maybe listen to that experience. It's telling you something. I'm not trying to be rude or negative in any way, shape,
Mm,
or form, nor am I trying to discount, but I'm a realist. If there's
mm.
something that's going on, there's something missing that you haven't done.
Yeah.
And trust me, humans will be able to tell.
Absolutely. And I
Yeah.
think part of it with the imposter syndrome for me is um, people think, and I don't know if this is familiar for you as well, but people think they need to be the perfect expert before they can step into some position. And actually, I think if you take that mindset, then it's finite space. You only get to a certain level. Whereas from my perspective, we're all students of working out what that future us is going to be,
Right.
and I'm the best version of that now, and I'll get better tomorrow and even better after that. And I might feel like I'm not the expert that I want to be in 2 years time, sure, but we've got to be on that path.
Yeah,
And I think it's owning that path, isn't it?
yeah, it is. And knowing there are certain points in your life where you need to know your limitations, and then you build more confidence and overcome the limitations.
Yes.
But I think it's very difficult to come along and be the founder of something like Hero Women and not done what you say you're talking about. I think that it's you're out of integrity.
Yeah.
And
100%.
I don't live like that.
Yeah,
I live
absolutely.
in my integrity. So everything that I deliver, all the tools, all the practical training, they've all been experienced, they've all been proven. If not necessarily by me, there's research that's been conducted by great leaders across the world
Mm.
who have done the similar stuff. So that's a very, to me, I'm not into I do like theory, but ultimately what will change the game is where the rubber hits the road. So you've got to put into practice all the knowledge that we all have.
Yeah.
So imposter syndrome, it's not about perfectionism. I'm never going to go, I don't want anyone to be a perfectionist at anything. But if you're getting a bit of a niggly feeling about feeling uncomfortable, that probably is a message that you might have to go back and
Beautiful.
upskill, relearn, whatever needs to be done.
Yeah, I
Okay.
think that's great advice. You've got to do the work. It's got to be an ongoing journey, and such an important one.
It's
And
lovely. I love it.
absolutely. No, that's it reminds me, I built the empathy process because I wasn't very good at it, and I had to learn and I had to develop. And again, that's really, I think, a critical part of your journey is going through those ups and downs, going through the challenges, going through that feeling that actually this isn't the job this isn't the position I wanted, this isn't right for me, and then transforming and really creating this beautiful space for people to get the support and build the network that they need. Um,
Yeah.
Pamela, before we wrap up, I've got some empathy card questions. So these are
Oh
just
no.
cards that I take to conferences and ask people these questions. I don't know if they're tricky or not. I don't think so, but maybe describe a time when someone said something to you that made a big impact on you.
Yes, it was very recently, actually. The founder of Glass House Fragrances, Nicole Eccles, she runs $100 million business. And for a long time, I resisted this thing called business plan. I don't like business plans. I don't know. I'm a visionary, so anything with numbers is like, oh my gosh. And it's almost like, when you're trying to lose weight, you got to jump on scales. And so you got to see the truth. And so the business plan is a truth, right? But
Mm,
she said something about if you want to build this business, and if you want, for example, where women struggle to get investment, and I'm a very brave woman, and I'm putting my hand out there to say that I'm looking for an angel investor. Now, to do that, I need to be very clear on the numbers, okay? And what the wisdom that was shared by her was do the due diligence before, like do it before, be well prepared, because when an investor's coming to you, they want to see the work that you've pre-done. They want to know, has this product, has this business been thought well through?
mm,
And that's a huge thing, because a lot of women in business, and probably men too, we're quite intuitive, and we're kind of gut driven and reactionary.
mm,
And the wisdom that was imparted, and this is the power of having elevating, influential conversations, was go smart, like go with your eyes wide open. So what did that mean for me? I had to let go of my ego, my resistance around, oh no, I know everything. Oh no, I know the numbers, and drill down into the truth. That's painful.
mhm.
Okay. I don't like to, you got to go through and look at the numbers and, oh my God, is this going to work, etc.
Yeah, I
That
think
had
it's a
really,
really
that had a huge transformational effect on me. Then what happens, of course, it ripples down into my community. So, I'm a huge advocate of having mentors all around me, and I've got a couple of really strong mentors that help me. So they get me out of my comfort zone.
mm. Yeah, I think that's great. And it's you're right, it's staring into that difficult truth that you talked about
Oh my
earlier.
goodness. So,
The uncomfortable truth, but it needs to be stared into to find, the path forward.
mhm.
Another question, what what do you do to recharge after a challenging day?
Great question. I go shopping.
What's your fancy? What do you take? What sort of things do you buy?
Oh, I like to browse a lot. I like to, I love clothes, I love that. I also have a dog, Honey, and I do a lot of beach walks. I'm a huge, huge advocate of rest and recovery days, a huge. If I have a very big day or a big morning, I do give myself the permission to recover. Because we're human and we're not robots, and we do need rest and recovery time. And as a business owner, particularly, for our mind to just have some freedom, sometimes it's just nice to just lay down in grass and look at the sky.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And again, something that many of the people in your community and many of the people listening, they'll feel that pressure to be on all the time and to be go, 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 hustle. But we do need to recharge. To, as my little girl says, we need to fill our cups, Dad. We need to fill our cups.
Yeah.
Last question: if you had to pick one word to describe your career journey so far, what would it be?
Enlightening. It's been a real enlightenment.
And that's such a great word because every time I catch up with you and see you in person, there is there's a sense that it's an unfinished journey that's so exciting to be on. It's like catching up with watching a movie where you think, oh, there's still really exciting bits to go,
Watch your
and
face. Yeah.
it's great to
I feel
catch
like
up.
I've just started. It's just really funny. I'm in my fifth decade of life, and I say that I'm on the fifth level, and it's a great view from here.
That's beautiful. I love it. Pamela, it's been an absolute delight talking to you. We're going to put some links for Hero Women and Common Family Lawyers
Oh, thank
and your LinkedIn and things like that. So I'd
you.
really recommend anyone to reach out if they're looking for that support. Thanks so much again for being on the podcast.
Cheers. Thank you so much.